So today we're going to do chapter 48, but before we're going to review. Okay, review again. Since chapter 41, we've been learning about the emotions of fear and love, and how fear has to precede love, how fear helps you be able to understand the other person before feeling love, which is it's a little bit selfish because it's how you feel. It's about you, how you feel towards that other person. Fear is more like removing yourself and thinking about the other person. Complete humility. How Moshe Rabbeinu had the complete humility, complete fear, and we inherited it. We have it inside of us. We have a little piece of it inside of us. Finally, when we understand what fear is, or awe, or respect, okay, there's different words to explain what yirah means. We speak about love. There's the love that's a gift, that comes from God as a gift. There's love that we have to work for. Okay, the love that comes as a gift is through work. If someone who acquires the perfect fear receives that love as a gift, that's the highest form of love. And then the Alter Rebbe talks about a love that's really close to us, that everyone has, and that's called reciprocal love. It's a love that God chose the Jewish nation when they were in the lowest of the lowest, in Egypt. They were low in the mud. Nothing. They were as nothing. He took them out of Egypt. He helped them clean up and rinse and refine, and brought him to his palace and married the Jewish people. It's a love story, reciprocal love, a strong love. And what happens when someone loves you, just has a strong love towards you? You are supposed to reciprocate it. So we might not be aware of it, we might not feel it, but naturally, when we are loved, we reciprocate that love. And it says that every day we have to experience Yetziat Mitzrayim, that leaving of Egypt, that form of love where God took us out of exile and married us. How do we experience it every day? Our soul is in exile, okay? In our body, it's not able to express itself. It's not able to do what it really wants to do. And every day, we can help our soul experience exile when we say Shema Yisrael. When we say Shema Yisrael, we are admitting that God is one, and we are surrendering ourselves completely to God, making us free, making the soul free and able to express that unity, that oneness of God. So every day, there's a pasuk in the Torah that says every day we have to remember and we have to live as if we're leaving Egypt. How is that possible? By saying Shema Yisrael, by loving God, by letting our soul experience that oneness, that unity of God being all over the world. That's how we are giving our soul a certain freedom and feeling of liberation from the soul's constant desires and constant addictions and constant prison-like feeling. So far, so good?
Yep.
Okay.
All good.
And everybody experiences that on a different level according to how conscious and how refined they are. That feeling of exile, everybody will experience it on a different level, okay? Mm-hmm. But everyone can experience this. Now, chapter 48 is interesting. It starts going into a really hard topic of tzimtzum. We have to understand that the Tanya is very practical. It's not a book of philosophy just to talk about philosophy and understand high concept. It's a very practical book that gives us tools to work with our two souls, the battle between the animal soul and the godly soul. It's tools to help us experience freedom. It's tools to experience unity and closeness to Hashem. It's tools to help us experience fear, real respect, true yirah, and true love towards Hashem. So when it brings tzimtzum, the Alter Rebbe says, I don't want to go too deep into it, but he brings enough information for us to understand in order to use a tool to love Hashem more. So over here, it's a little bit complicated. I took a little bit of time to understand, and I hope that I'll be able to teach it over properly. But we have to understand that we shouldn't get too much into it. We should just understand it's a tool. It's here to explain us in order to be able to use a tool to love Hashem even better. Okay? So I'm going to read inside and then I'm going to explain it. V'hine kasher yizbonen hamaskil bigdulas en sof baruch hu ki kishmo ken hu en sof ve'en ketz ve'tachlit klal le'or ve'chayut hamispashet mimenu yizbarach bertzono hapashut. Contemplating the greatness of the blessed Ein Sof, right, of God, when one thinks about how great Hashem is, the thinking person will come to the realization that as his name indicates, so is he. There is no end or limit or finitude at all to the light and vitality that diffuse from his simple will. What did I just say? When someone thinks about God, they are able to come to the conclusion or to realize, to understand that the light and energy of Hashem is infinite. It's not something that's limited. We can't understand. Our brain can't grasp it because it's higher than our brain. It's higher than anything we see in the world, because everything we see in the world has limits, has borders, is finite. So this is even greater. And which is united with his essence and being in perfect unity, right? His light and his energy that's infinite is united with his essence. The light and vitality that emanate from God, okay, in order that he creates and animate the finite worlds, are in no way similar to light and vitality as they found within created beings. So the light of Hashem is not similar at all to the light we see or experience in this world. Anything we see or experience that's holy, that has a light, is finite. The energy and light from God is infinite. It's nothing comparison. Light that emanates from a created being is not limited by the capacity of the recipient. On the other hand, the luminary has no control over its power of illumination. So it's going to go a little deep, so really hold on. Having been created as a luminary, it has no choice but to illuminate. Divine light, however, while possessing all the positive qualities of illumination as found in created luminaries, shares none of its deficiency. Light emanates from the luminary only when the luminary desires to do so. The will of created being likewise has strength and weaknesses. Though it chooses freely, it is by its very nature limited and restrictive. God's will, by contrast, while maintaining the positive attributes of mortal will, is encumbered by none of its limitation. His will is unbound, just as he himself with it is without limitation. So God's will and God's light has no, it just gave an example of just like a light has can shine or not shine, right? The sun rises and the sun sets, the light you can turn off and on. The light of Hashem is connected to him, is one with him, and it has no limitation.
But what it is when we talk about light of Hashem?
What is light is his expression. It's his, when you see the light, his energy, but it's more than, it says the light and energy of God.
Yeah,
it's his wisdom, it's higher, non. C'est une lumière plus haut que la Shrina. La Shrina, c'est déjà dans le monde. We're going to understand. A very good question. So Dorit asked, why do we have to know? Do we have access? So it's explaining to see how we're connected to Hashem and to that light. So we have to understand first that there's a light and energy that is so great, that is not limited, that is not experienced in this world, because everything we see in this world is limited. Had the worlds descended from light of the blessed Sof without contractions, but according to gradual descent from grade to grade by means of cause and effect, The loftier level being the direct cause for the manifestation of the level immediate following it. Okay, let me explain you because it's very hot. I try to understand it. I think I understand it. We'll see. You'll tell me what you think. There is a concept of cause and effect, right? What's cause and effect? There's a seed. The seed is planted. It grows a tree. The tree is an effect of the seed, and then the fruit is the effect of the tree. Right? The cause and effect. So you see how there's in the world, there's a lot of things that are chain-like in history. Something that happened in history today affects us, right? It's a chain. One person decided to change one little thing that had a whole chain effect, that today we live with certain things that were affected back then in history, right? Everything in this world has cause and effect, is related, is always coming from something else.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, makes sense.
If we think that the light of God is the same way, right? That the original light of the unlimited light came down to this world in a hishtalshelus, which is cause and effect. That means it got smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's always related to the one above. We're totally wrong. Impossible. There had
Why do you say that it got smaller and smaller?
For it to come to this world, right? To be
okay.
So if you think that it was that cause and effect, right? There was the big light of God, and then it got smaller, and so it's attached to the one before, and then it got smaller until it came to this world. That's hishtalshlus. Okay, that is. There is that cause and effect in the world, okay? There is that cause and effect in creation, but before something happened. The light of God is so unlimited, so great, that it needed to go through tzimtzum. Tzimtzum is very different than cause and effects. Tzimtzum is the exact translation. I don't know, let me see how they translate. Is a contraction. That means God took his light, contracted it, removed himself, left an emptiness, because if God didn't remove himself, all the creation would not be able to exist, because that's how great. We would be overwhelmed by God and we would not be able to exist. So God had to contract himself in order for the world to exist. This is what tzimtzum is. Tzimtzum is the removal. Sorry.
The removal of God.
The removal of his light. Removal of denying his existence in order for us to exist and to feel. And that's why in this world we could live in a world where we don't see God. But God is everywhere.
Is it connected with the fact that if he hadn't done this, then there would be no free will, because we would be overwhelmed by his presence?
For sure. There would be no existence if he didn't do this. There would be no existence because his light is so great that it would just unite into one and melt away into his light.
And
So
when Mashiach comes, the light is...
that's a good question. I don't know yet. I didn't read the whole. We're just starting. So, very important to know that such is the case with regard to thought and speech. That which a person speaks is first found within his thought. Thought is the cause, and speech is the effect. Right?
Thought is the cause.
So, the Alter Rebbe over here brings an example to explain what tzimtzum is. Right? So there's a thought, your thought brought to a speech, right? There's cause, the cause is the thought, the speech is the effect.
Okay.
Though thought is more spiritual than speech, the two levels stand in a certain proportion to each other. In that, for example, both are composed of letters that form words. And so with every cause and effect relationship, the effect must partake of the characteristic of its cause, okay? So in any cause and effect, there's always a certain relationship between the cause, and the effect. The seed is connected to the apple. Even if the apple didn't come from the seed, right? Directly, but it's connected. That's how cause. The thought is connected to speech, even if speech is very different than the thought, but it's connected because it comes from that.
Ouais, mais c'est pas automatique. Des fois, the thought is not expressed like the speech. You know what
Exactly, that's why it's an effect of it, but it's still very connected.
It's connected. Yeah.
But in this case, it would be impossible for a cause to bring into existence an effect which is infinitely removed from it. Since the light and vitality, the creative power that emanates from God is infinite, while created beings are finite, it goes without saying that they could not possibly have come into being in a matter of cause and effect. So because God is infinite and us, all creation, included angels and souls that are in the other world, everything that exists within this world of existence, even things we don't see, like the angels and the souls that are in, that passed on, they are part of a creation that is separate from the light, from the infinite light, because they are finite. Do you understand how it can't be cause and effect? Do you understand why we brought everything that's cause and effect will always be related somehow? But in the case of creation, we are all limited, so we cannot be cause and effect. We cannot be an effect of the cause, which is the infinite light. Something else happened. Yes.
But don't we say that our souls are like eternal? So and we say that we have a spark from God in our souls on this. So isn't that like connected to the infinite somehow?
That's a good point. Our soul is eternal. Is it infinite? It said that even the souls in Olam Haba are limited.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Compared to the unlimited, they're not as limited as us, but compared to the light of God and the energy of God that's unlimited, all the creations that's under it is limited. So something had to happen. And it couldn't be cause and effect. It could not be cause and effect. Because cause and effect is always related to the cause. The effect is always related somehow to the effect. And in this case, creation, which is the effect, is not related to the cause, to the infinite light. So something else happened. What happened? Lo haya ha'olam hazeh nivra klal כמו שהוא עתה בבחינת גבול ותכלס מהארץ לרקיע מהלך תקוף שנה. This world and all it contains would not have been created in its presence form in a finite and limited order. From the earth to the firmament is a distance of 500 years. וכן בין כל רקיע לרקיע וכן over kol rakia rakia. And similarly is the distance between one firmament and the next. Okay, there's many worlds. There's worlds we don't see. So even those are somehow limited. And so also the radial extent of each firmament is a distance of 500 years. And all the above applies to this world. All the worlds can be measured by years. Okay, I don't know. It's something I can't understand, but it said they're all distance 500 years. So if they have a distance, if they have measures, that means they're limited. That means they are not a cause of God's infinite light. ואפילו עולם הבא וגן עדן העליון מדור נשמות הצדיקים הגדולים הנשמות. Someone wants to... No.
Yes, that's me.
Oh, that was you? והנשמות עצמם ואין צריך לומר המלאכים הן בבחינת גבול ותכלס. Even the world to come, right? Even paradise and the higher level of Gan Eden, the abode of the souls of the great tzaddikim, and all the souls themselves, and needless to add the angels, are all in a realm of bounds and limitations. So they're less limited than us, but they're all within that realm of limitation.
Sterna?
Yeah.
Does limited in this sense means there's going to be an end, so at one point we just will completely not be, we will disappear? I don't know how to say that.
So that's very good question. So I don't think limited is in that sense. Limited is in the sense that there's an existence. there's a shape. The person who I was learning this chapter from, he said you can describe an angel, and the fact that you can describe an angel limits it. It gives its measure. It has a form. It has a shape. Souls can be also are limited in some sort. Doesn't mean they're going to end sometime. I don't think. Maybe, I don't know if in that sense, but they.
Il faudrait définir, ça veut dire quoi, limited, and why they're insisting on us understanding.
Because the fact that they exist, they have a certain limitation. After what is the limitation exactly, I can't tell you. It doesn't discuss it in this chapter. But we just have to understand that they are limited in the sense that they're not an infinite light that is, like God. They're still part of God, but they're not that infinite light. They have a certain limitation which makes them exist. That limitation makes them exist. And different and separate from God, in a way.
Mais c'est parce que quand tu as commencé le cours, tu as dit que c'était très important qu'on comprenne que le Tanya... Non, tu me parles pas quand je parle. Assieds-toi et attends. Que le Tanya, c'était un book very practical et que ça nous donnait des tools. But this is
so right now, that's why. No, but wait, we're going to come back to how it's practical.
Okay,
right now, we're just understanding what Tzimtzum is.
Because are they explaining... Parce que soit il faut qu'on nous explique qu'est-ce que ça veut dire limited, soit il faut qu'on nous explique qu'est-ce que ça veut dire infinite light.
No, right now, it just wants us to understand what Tzimtzum is. Tzimtzum, contraction, is that there was an unlimited, infinite light, God's light and energy,
yes,
that had to contract in order to create a world that's finite and that's limited.
Ça veut dire quoi? Pourquoi? Why?
Because what does it mean? It's that it's defined, that we see a physical world with shapes and forms and measurements, and everything has, after maybe you guys see just limited as a time that we expire, but maybe that I don't know. After I can't give you. I think limited is compared to Hashem, that it doesn't have that power that God has. It has a measure, it has a shape, it has a form. It's different, it's separate from God. That's how it's limited. Okay? Yes.
Quick question. On a side subject, I'm just wondering, what in Judaism, what is the concept for, you said the other worlds that we don't see? What does that mean?
There's 4 worlds, right? And those worlds, the world, everything that comes into this physical world had to go through these worlds. And from every world, there's a world of formation, a world of Atzilut. The angels are in one world. Anyways, and these different levels of worlds affect us in different ways. We can connect to the tzaddikim come from the highest world, Atzilut. There's different.
Like a physical other world, like
no, it's not physical. It's not physical.
Spiritual, right?
It's spiritual.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
The only physical world is this world. Yeah, no, they're not physical. For there is a limit to their apprehension of the light of the blessed Sof. That's how they're limited. There's a limit to their apprehension of the light of blessed Ein Sof, which shines upon them through being clothed in Chabad and so on. So there's a limit to how much light they have. All those creation, everything, even spiritual creations. Because there's a limit to their apprehension of the light of the blessed Ein Sof. There's a limit to how much light they have within them.
How much light?
They can't have more light than a certain amount.
Souls and angels, which people, these worlds, which I don't know what. Okay, comprehend godliness as a result of its vestitude in the Chabad of those worlds. Though lofty, their comprehension is nonetheless limited. So, basically, it says that as much as they understand God, they don't really. They're very limited in how much light they can grasp, and that's how they are limited. Okay.
So maybe except for tzaddikim, no?
Even tzaddikim.
Oh yeah.
Even tzaddikim are limited of how much they can know God. Because if not, they wouldn't.
Imagine us.
Imagine, yeah. So that's the point. That's the point. That's for us to realize where we are and to understand that even if we're that low, God still loves us and chooses us every day. ולכן יש גבול להינשם שנהנים מזיו השכינה ומסענגים באור השם. Hence, there is also a boundary to their enjoyment that they derive from the rays of the Shekhinah. So how, okay, now you wanted to know how they're limited. So we know they're limited in their comprehension of Hashem. They're limited in that light and understanding what God is. They're limited in the enjoyment of the light, of the pleasure they get from the Shekhinah. It's limited. כי אין יכולים לקבל הנאה והתנהגות והתענוג בבחינת אינסוף ממש שלא יסבטלו במציאותם ויחזרו למקורן. For they are incapable of deriving enjoyment and delight of an infinite order without being nullified out of their existence and returning to their source. Do you understand?
The enjoyment of what?
They have to be limited in how much they could enjoy God and the understand God, because if not, they will return to no existence, to nothing. They're going to be nullified as if they never existed.
They would go back to God.
They would just cease to exist. Melt like a flame that goes back into another flame. You can't see, right? It doesn't exist anymore. So they are limited in what sense? You wanted to know how are they limited? They are limited in them understanding God, in them having that light of them shine within them, and in them enjoying God, because if they weren't limited, then they would cease to exist, which is actually comforting. That means a soul, it kind of gives an answer. What happens to a soul after is still in existence. It's still a creation. It's just we don't see it. It's not in our world. It goes into a different world or a different realm, but it still exists and it's still limited. Thus, even the creatures of the highest spiritual worlds are finite beings, and in order for them to be created in a finite manner, the process of contraction, which is tzimtzum, must be invoked. Being finite, they are totally dissimilar to their source. So that's why you cannot compare anything spiritual, anything you see, any experience you see or you experience is not compared to what God is. You can't say this is God.
But what you say, Ashgacha praxit.
But God, we're getting there. We're getting there. The infinite godly light that exists prior to contraction. Okay, so we have to understand that everything we experience, everything we see, everything that exists within this world, even in the spiritual worlds, are finite, went through a contraction that kind of changed something inside of that changed what the light of God was, which was infinite. It changed it to being finite. And the Alter Rebbe says, now, as for the intricate details of the contractions, how they achieve their effect and what they actually are, this is not the place for their explanation. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe says, it's not here. We're not going to start explaining what Tzimtzum and the effect it has on the world. All we need to understand is that it changed the light of God to being finite. That means it's not cause and effect. That means that anything that's created after Tzimtzum is different than the light, the original light.
It changed what?
It's different than the original light of God.
It changed the light of God? The Tzimtzum changed
it changed it because it made it finite.
And the idea is that is because it's so
that
strong and powerful that we couldn't basically exist.
We wouldn't be able to exist. Exactly. Ach, derech klal hem b'chinas hester v'helem hamasheches ha'or v'achayot. But in general, they are something in the nature of an obscuring and concealment of the flow of light and vitality. Shelo ya'ir v'yomshech לתחתונים בבחינת גילוי להסלבש ולהשפיע בהם ולחיוסם להיות יש מאין, so that the light and vitality should illumine and reach the lower creatures in a revealed manner, pervading them and acting in them and animating them in such a way that they exist. Okay, so the light that exists after Tzimtzum gives life, is still part of God. It's just finite, but it's a part of God because it gives life, a life source to everything here. Us, we are living, we are creating, other human beings. That's the light that's within us. That's the godly light that's within us that gives life force or life source to everything that exists over here. Okay, so it still has a strength. כי אם מעט מזהר אור וחיות בכדי שיהיו בבחינת גבול ותכלס. In only an extremely minute measure so that they be in a state of finitude and limitation. So we still have a minute degree of light, enough to give vitality to this world. Okay? So plants, animals, they still have that light. Even if they went through Tzimtzum, they still have that light that gives vitality, enough to give light and vitality in the world. So the light and vitality that is revealed within, okay, so again in Hebrew, שהיא הארה מועטת מאוד וממש כלל חשיבי לגבי בחינת הארה בלי גבול ותכלס ואין ביניהם ערך ויחס כלל. This light and vitality that is revealed within them, we're talking about within creation, okay, that went through that after the contraction, constitutes an infinitesimal illumination and is truly considered as na when compared to the quality of the limitless and infinite illumination, and there's no reference or relationship between them. Okay? So the light that exists today in this world after contraction cannot be compared to the light before that. And the Alter Rebbe gives an example. For example, 1 compared to 1 million is a big distance, right? It's a huge distance. But 1 is still connected to 1 million, because if there wasn't that 1, then you wouldn't be able to reach the 1 million, right? But 1 million compared to infinity, is there any relationship? No, because no matter how many millions you will never reach infinity. So that's the Alter Rebbe brings this example to explain us the light of God before Tzimtzum to the light after Tzimtzum is incomparable, because it's infinity. It's comparing infinity with finite. You can't compare.
Is it a concept only of Tanya, or it's
no, the Arizal. So it's in the Zohar. The Arizal brings this concept. And why is it very important to understand this concept of Tzimtzum? Is because why? Because people thought before that God existed only up there and he was watching. And he did, but when you understand that God, no, he's within, it's like it's a part of him. He drilled a hole within his light, and in that hole, that emptiness, he created the world. It's within him. But the only reason why we exist is because he removed his light. But what happened to his light? So it continues, the Tanya compares, what happened to his infinite light? It surrounds the world. It surrounds the world, and it encompasses the world. That light before Tzimtzum is a light that's called Sovev Kol Almim. It surrounds, it encompasses the whole world, and we don't feel its energy, but we are affected by its energy in a direct way. Just not in a way of inside, like our soul inside a body, but in a way of encompassing and surrounding.
So wait, let's say it in other words. So before, like we thought.
So before, the Jews used to think that before the Arizal, before Chabad, Hasidus, that's why people were fighting them, is that they didn't think Hashem was in lowly things. Like he wasn't interested in, but over here, the Tzimtzum tells us that Hashem is in every single part of creation, even these little pebbles, these little earth, the leaf that falls from a tree, every single detail, God is part of it. What happened is that Tzimtzum gave us the feeling that he doesn't exist, because he removed his light in order for us to exist. But he's right there. We're within him. It's within him, and he surrounds this whole world that's finite, that went through Tzimtzum. He surrounds it, and he's constantly within. There's two lights. There's a light that surrounds, and that's the light that's infinite, and then there's a light that's within, like the soul. That's the soul within a body. So that's an example. But within everything of creation, that light exists. Okay, so why is it important to know this? Let's read on, okay? It's a little bit complicated, but next week we're gonna finish. We're gonna understand the full picture. Okay, so that we spoke about the numbers of 1 and 1 million, right? שאפילו אלף אלפי אלפים וריבו רבבות אינו אפילו כערך מספר אחד לגבי אלף אלפי אלפים וריבו רבבות. For a billion and a trillion, when compared to infinity, do not even attain the relevancy of the value of 1 in comparison with a billion and a trillion, right? So this we understood. Ela kla mamash chashivi. But it's veritably accounted as nothing. Okay, so a billion, a trillion compared to infinity is like nothing. וככה ממש היא בחינת הערה מועטה זו המסלבשת בעולמות העליונים ותחתונים להשפיע בהם לחייסם. So indeed is the utterly insignificant quality of this minute illumination after the contraction with which clothes itself in the higher and lower worlds in order to provide them with sustenance and life. So too this light that we experience in this world is nothing compared to the infinite light. לגבי אור הגנוז ונעלם שהוא בבחינת אין סוף. When compared with the quality of the hidden and concealed light that is an infinite order. ואינו מסלבש ומשפיע בעולמות בבחינת גילוי להחייסם אלא מקיף עליהם מלמעלה ונכחש סובב כל העלמים. And that's what. So what happens to this light, this great infinite light, right? We're only affected, we only feel and experience. Anything you experience comes from a light that's finite, that's limited, that's nothing compared to God's infinite light. So what happens to that light? It doesn't close itself or exercise its influence in the world in a revealed manner. So it's still there, but it won't be in a revealed manner, providing them with life, but encompasses them from above. In other words, it exerts its influence while remaining on its own level and is so called Sovev Kol Almim. Okay, this is a very high thing. Again, it's hard to understand. I'm trying to explain it as much as my little understanding can. No, it's hard. It's very hard. It's very high. I had a hard time preparing. Unlike the light that pervades all worlds, Mimale Kol Almim, which permeates and vests itself within, just as the soul vests itself in the body, the encompassing light remains aloof from the world. Okay, so there's two lights. What we understand from this is there are two lights. There's the light before contraction and there's the light after contraction. The light after contraction vests itself within the world, okay, but it's limited. That's what we experience.
This one is the before? No, before.
After contraction. The one that's before, it's still there. It will always be there, but it won't be changed or affected, and we won't feel it. But it has a huge influence in the world and in our life. It encompasses the world in a surrounding way, not in a how do you call it? Not in a way that it enters the world. It surrounds the world. Again, it's the words I'm using are physical terms. So in a spiritual way, I don't know what it means to surround and to permeate, but an example would be the soul is in our body, that's the light that's after Tzimtzum. Anything that encompasses it, and any light that encompasses it, it surrounds the world. That's the light of our Ein Sof, the light before Tzimtzum.
And the one after is
Finite, yeah. So, but the meaning is that it encircles and encompasses from above insofar as the revelation of this influence is concerned. Okay, so we are influenced by this light in an outwardly way. Okay?
Which light?
This light of that's unlimited. We are influenced, but it's very hidden. כי ההשפעה שהיא בחינס גילוי בעולמות נקרא בשם הלבשה שמסלבשת בעולמות כי הם מלבישים ומשיגים ההשפעה שמקבלים. For influence, which is in the category of revelation in the world, is referred to as investitute, being clothed within the world, for the influence that they receive is clothed and comprehended by them. So any influence that is in a revealed way, anytime you experience anything in a revealed way, a spiritual experience, a light, something positive that you feel like it's godliness, but you feel it in a revealed way, just know this light is not even close to what God is. This light is a light that came after contraction. מה שאין כן ההשפעה שאינו בבחינת גילוי אלא בהסתר וההלם ואין העולמות משיגים אותה אינה נכחת מסלבשת אלא מקפת וסובבת. Whereas the influence which does not come within the category of revelation but remain obscured and concealed and is not apprehended by the world is not described as being invested in them but as encircling and encompassing them. I hope so. I closed it. So any influence that doesn't come within the category of revelation, that's not revealed, anytime you experience, and usually I'm coming to the conclusion that it's probably things that are negative that happen to us that we can't comprehend. That's what I'm guessing. Comes from that light that surrounds us, comes from a really high place, a high source that encircles us, and we can't understand that it's there's revealed good and there's hidden good. We always ask for the revealed good. We want to see the revealed good because good that's hidden usually comes in something negative because our mind cannot grasp, because our mind cannot understand, It's always good. Everything that happens to this world to us is always good. The question is, sometimes it's revealed and sometimes it's hidden. Sometimes it comes from the light that's within this world that came after Tzimtzum, and sometimes it comes from the world, the light that encompasses and that is before. And when it comes from that light, it's not revealed. כך מאחר שהעולמות הם בבחינת גבול ותכלס, נמצא שאין השפעת אור אין סוף מסלבשת ומסגלת בהן. בהם, where am I? בבחינת גילוי רק מעט מזעיר הערה מועטת מצומצמת מאוד מאוד. Therefore, since the worlds belong in the order of the finite and limited, it follows that only an extremely minute and contracted reflection of the flow of the infinite light of the blessing self-closed and manifests itself in them in a revealed form. Okay, so because we live in a world where everything has to be finite and limited, we experience very limited light. And this only is to animate them in a finite and revealed state. Okay, this light is only so that we can exist. In order for creation to come about, there must necessarily be at least some glimmer of godly illumination. Okay, so when you said your soul is, what did you say? Your soul is what? Eternal. So yes, we have to have it has to have a godly spark, a godly side to it in order for us to exist. But in an extremely limited form. It's eternal in a very limited form. So for us, it's eternal. But when it comes to God, you can't compare it.
But when we say a soul is eternal, it's that it comes back after and after and after.
No, it's that it always exists. It won't die out. That's what you meant. Yeah. Yes, it is. It won't die out, but it's still limited compared to God's light. אבל עיקר האור בלי צמצום כל כך נקרא מקיף וסובב מאחר שאין השפעתו מתגלס בתוכה מאחר שהם בבחינת גבול ותכלס. Again, repeat. But the principal light that is without contraction to such an extent is called mekif, encircling, and sovev, encompassing, since its influence is not revealed within the world inasmuch as they belong in the order of the finite and limited. Okay, so the other light it's still there, but it expresses itself, or it's in a world of encircling and encompassing. Okay, so its influence is not revealed to us. והמשל בזה הנה הארץ הזו הגשמי אף שמלוא כל הארץ כבודו. To illustrate this point, consider this material world. Even though the whole world is full of his glory, namely the infinite light of the blessing self, as is written, do I not feel heaven and earth? Nevertheless, only very limited vitality of no more than the category of the inanimate and vegetable world is clothed within the world in the form of revealed influence. Okay, so what does it say over here? Sorry, I'm going to explain. It says that think of this world. In the world, you see there's different levels of life force. There's the inanimate objects. They don't have, you don't see any life force, right? But they have a life. If they exist, they have a godly soul in it. Then there's the plants, the vegetation. The vegetation have a life force. They're growing, they're changing, they're blossoming, they're dying. There's a certain life force to them. It's a little higher than the inanimate object, but it's not as great as the animal. And then there's the animal that are even greater, and then the human beings that are even greater. So when you understand this, you can understand how we can have different levels of life force within this world. When you see it expressed in this world through the plants, the inanimate objects, the animals, the humans. While all the light of the blessed Sof, which fills the world itself in a concealed manner, is described as encompassing it, even though it actually pervades it. Since its influence is no more revealed in it than it is revealed within the inanimate and vegetable world, but affects it in a hidden and concealed manner. What am I saying? Okay, we're gonna stop. There's four
levels of life force.
What do they call it in the Tanya? It calls there's four categories there's four categories of what?
Life force.
I guess life force if you want. There's the
creation.
There's the inanimate, minerals, right? There's the vegetation, the botanical, animals, and human beings. All these have different levels of life force that will be expressed, and according to the level of life force, they're going to be able.
Which is light. What we call life force is light.
It's light, exactly. It's the life force is the light of God. Okay. So in an inanimate object, the light of God is going to be much less than in a human, or than in a plant, or than in an animal.
Where is money situated?
Money
should be inanimate.
It's inanimate. It's still inanimate. Well, yeah, it has power, but it's still inanimate. It doesn't. What does it do? Okay, a human has the highest life force, but it needs a human for it to save life. It's not the money that saves life; it's the human that uses the money for the human. The fact that it has a seichel, a mind to think and differentiate and exactly that makes the life force that is expressed through it much higher than an inanimate object.
Okay.
So that life force is revealed. This is a life force that is all these life force within the world comes from a light that went through a contraction, that is revealed, that we feel, that we experience, that we see. But the life of the Ein Sof of God before contraction influences the world in an encompassing way, in a circular way. That means you won't see it expressed like you see a plant life force. It won't be expressed in that way.
So we just have to believe that it still exists after it seems.
It does exist.
Yeah, but we don't have.
We don't feel it. It comes from a very hidden place.
So whose status? Qui c'est qui a décidé que ça existait encore?
This is what the Kabbalah says.
Tanya says that.
Yeah.
Kabbalah. But we weren't never, like no one, even tzaddikim. But we know it's there, but we can't.
We know it exists, and I think when it says that things happen that are higher than our understanding, that's the influence we get from that life force. So anything in the world that you don't understand, that is beyond comprehension, comes from a life force that's above, that from the influence of a light that's before Tzimtzum. That's what my explanation is. Am I right? I have to verify that, but that's what I understood from reading Tanya. Yeah.
Okay. No, because I'm like, if no one can access it, if no one has the...
We can access it, but it accesses us. But it's like we're having an influence by something we can't feel, but it's there. It's influence. It's giving us light. It's encompassing us. Without us feeling it. Because if we felt it, we wouldn't exist.
Mais ça, c'est pas encore la Shrina, là. On parle même pas de la Shrina.
No, this is higher than the Shrina.
Je sais parce que quand ils disent que, mettons, sous une choupa et tout ça, il y a God qui descend et tout. What is it exactly?
The choupa is kind of the example of that light, that Shrina. I don't know why I use Shrina. But that what is a choupa? A choupa is surrounds, right, the couple. It goes all around. So that's a light that we experience. I don't know if that's why we do a chuppah, but
that's before
yes, that's the light.
So here we can access it in a way.
No, we do these things because we believe, we know that has an influence. Do we could we access it as directly? No, but it's there. It expresses itself in an encompassing way, in a surrounding way. So,
or like a minyan, or like
I don't know. I can't tell you when or where, but it's just a light of God that exists in an encompassing way. And when you brought the example of the chuppah, that's exactly what the chuppah does. So that's maybe showing that yes, God is here. We don't feel Him, but here's the chuppah in order for you to feel that God.
Presence.
That exactly.
Non, parce qu'une fois tu avais dit que dès qu'il y a 10 juifs qui sont réunis,
il y a la Shrina. Ça c'est une autre chose. Je sais pas. Je peux pas te dire après.
So what is Shrina and what is light? C'est ça que je veux comprendre moi. Quand on parle de Shrina, c'est quoi compared to the light that you're talking about?
Okay, that's a good question. I will find out.
La Shrina, c'est la présence d'Hachem, c'est ça qu'on a toujours.
I will find out if Shrina is part of that light. Or is it
yeah,
I have to find out because I don't know.
Because I'm wondering if no one has ever access it, if no one will never access it, alors qu'on nous dit juste que
no, I didn't say no one will access it. We
can't because
we are influenced by it.
Ouais, mais tu as dit
we can't feel it. I didn't say we can't access it.
No, but
we can't
said that
feel
we
it.
Exist.
We can't feel it. Because if we feel it in an inside way, we stop existing. But we can access it in an out. It influences us in an outwardly way. In an encompassing way, like ça nous entoure, ça peut pas rentrer dans nous pour qu'on expérience. L'expérience, elle va être très différente que des expériences qu'on a dans ce monde avec la lumière.
C'est trop fort pour rentrer.
C'est trop fort, exactement. You know?
Or fire, when you say fire in a tzaddik, genre les bougies qu'on allume quand on va dans des kévers de tzaddikim et tout ça, comme il y a des expériences assez genre incroyable. Je pense que ça peut être access, but without being inside this, I understand.
If we're learning about it, it means we could access it. I'm going to stop the video.